One of the most popular classes within the Toyo Tyres MSA British Rallycross Championship is the Retro Rallycross Brigade. Cars that trigger memories, racing that triggers memories as well. Eclectic doesn't even do this justice. Triumph TR7 V8s take on Escort Mark 1s, occasionally you find Metro 6R4s, and there's always the ubiquitous Mini and Mark 2 Escort in there as well. Barry Stewart's Porsche, the car to beat in Q2 and Q3, but with such a mix on display here, and the weather conditions variable as well, this is going to be fascinating. There are two championships. There's Retro, headed by Lance Foster. There is Super Retro, as good as one by Ray Morgan. Barry Stewart is on row one for the final. Kevin Feeney and Gary Dixon alongside, ahead of Stuart Bowes and Ray Morgan, with Lance Foster, Paul Easterbrook and Paul Smith on the back row of the grid. It's a slippery road, it's a wet road, and it's blast off, and Barry Stewart launches away in the ex-Rolf Nielsen Porsche. Kevin Feeney in the Escort Mark II outdrags Ray Morgan's Escort Mark III, or does he? Because as they go up through the gears, Feeney goes backwards. The Minis charge up the inside of Gary Dixon's Astra. Through on the inside goes Stuart Bowes, except he gets all crossed up and loses it completely, facing the wrong way. Kevin Feeney there in the Escort that's gained a bit more livery since we saw it at Pembrey. Sideways, as befits a good Mark II Escort, but he's got himself at the back of the field now with work to do. Barry Stewart then leads the way, the ex-Rolf Nielsen Porsche that won in 1982, the very first Rallycross Grand Prix, leads the way. And Stuart Bowes, the caterer, rejoins a long way adrift. Barry Stewart versus Ray Morgan then as they come across the loose for the first time. Ray Morgan has a problem, he's off the road. Has something broken, he can't turn, and Ray Morgan, who is normally one of the front runners, has hit big problems, and so too has Lance Foster, the two class leaders in the championship, both looking as though they're out of the race on the opening lap here. Ray Morgan's nearest opposition there in the MR2 in the championship, Paul Easterbrook. Lance Foster's nearest opposition is Paul Smith. Now it looks as though both are out of the race. Their championship margin should be enough to secure things for them as Kevin Feeney gets all sideways through the gravel at Clairvaux. He hustles on now up towards Hawthorne through the right-hander. There's Paul Easterbrook behind him. And Paul Easterbrook in the MR2, the former autocrosser, battles his way up towards the chicane. So what was the Porsche in the lead from an Escort is now the Porsche in the lead from an Astra. Barry Stewart, it is, still dominant, except here, look, Gary Dixon is hustling on in the Mark II shape Astra and closing that gap down. Maybe the Astra better suited to the conditions, not as powerful, but it's a bit more nimble and it's got better drive coming out of the corners. The Porsche eventually stretching its legs, and when the opportunity presents, the Porsche howls away from the Astra. Gary Dixon through in second spot as down towards Clairvaux goes Barry Stewart. Just touches the throttle and the back tries to break away. He doesn't do every round in this car, but when he is here, he's always quick, always competitive. Gary Dixon behind him. And he's dropped back, as you can see, on the tarmac. It was on the loose section that he seemed to have the advantage last time through. Dixon battles on then. There, lower down, Volkswagen technician Paul Smith, and he in turn is keeping the caterer Stuart Bowes at bay. The ex-Mike Dresser Mini in the hands of Stuart Bowes, who started off in Rallycross way back in 1990 in, of course, a Mini, and he's right on the tail of Paul Smith in that 1400cc Polo, the G40 shaped car built initially for the stock hatch class. On to the last lap, it looks as though Barry Stewart is on target for a win, but with the two championship class leaders sitting by the side of the road watching what's going on, they've just seen Stuart Bowes go ahead of Paul Smith, and Barry Stewart is stretching his margin here. It looks as though he is on target for a race win. It's been a great drive as well as he turns his way now through Hawthorne. Gary Dixon is the man doing the chasing, and again this elasticated gap has really shrunk. Stuart Bowes over the loose section and makes his way back towards tarmac, as here are the two race leaders who have got themselves absolutely together. Last lap, remember, across the loose they bounce. The Porsche, where again it can stretch its legs, does just pull away from the Vauxhall, and it looks as though here Barry Stewart has done enough. He comes down to the hairpin, and this is the section of the circuit where, unless the guy ahead makes a mistake, it's really hard to surge up alongside. Dixon gets good drive out of the corner, but Barry Stewart has enough in hand and he will win the final of the Retro Rallycross Championship for 2017 Across the line for second is Gary Dixon, and recovering after his slow start, Kevin Feeney takes third. Paul Easterbrook bounces his way up towards the hairpin, and he gets all sideways. Can he hang on to it? Just about. Finds all the mud, all the puddles, and he battles his way now up towards the timing line and comes home with the MR2 to finish this last round of the championship. But now it's all hands to the calculator to work out what the demise of Lance Foster and Ray Morgan in their respective classes has done for the championship as Stuart Bowes takes the flag. Let's do the race result first of all. 11/10 split Barry Stewart the winner from Gary Dixon, Kevin Feeney third from Paul Easterbrook, Stuart Bowes and Paul Smith. For the championships then, Ray Morgan does enough to defeat Paul Easterbrook in the Super Retro Rallycross Championship. Kevin Feeney third, Barry Stewart fourth. And in Retro Rallycross, Lance Foster does enough to fend off Paul Smith. Simon Hart coming home third from Stuart Bowes.